This composer cut is about the DNA Activation LevelOne series. This is probably going to be the longest composer cut because really all of our soundscapes emanate from the core level theory or belief that the DNA is the key to the awakening, the evolutionary concepts, enlightenment, and through ascension. So the summary for this one is that Gary's primary directive was to build frequency maps via multidimensional sounds to support the journey of a gradual ascension process from 3D to 4D to 5D, so that the pathways would have substance and provide the most expansive frequency spectrum for conscious seekers to follow. My job was to support that mission through trainings and teachings, one-on-one guidance that would help people understand how this type of higher knowledge is absorbed, assimilated, and integrated into one's life in a tangible and practical way, as well as the otherworldly and the woo-woo world of metaphysics and quantum dynamics. The DNA is the software and the interface from which these lines of communication navigate the journey of awakening. So this composer cut is really about the core body of our work, which is activating the higher potentials in the human DNA blueprint. Humans are so much more than what they appear to be in this current reality construct. If you follow the consciousness movement for any amount of time, you'll see that it's exploding everywhere and in all aspects of society. People are ready now for big changes to occur as the old systems are crumbling. The newer, higher concepts are starting to move through the collective. Bit by bit, these principles and teachings find their way into our movies, our advertising, our products and services, and our general languaging with each other. Many, many, many light workers are incarnate on the planet now, contributing to this adventure. And they've been arriving in mass since the early 50s. And I'll leave it to you to see the synchronicity of that timeline. So many more are coming now, and we also have been building a very large group who have ascended to the fifth world to ground and anchor the bridges for those making the transitions, both in and out of body. And this is where Gary is at this point. Gary's primary directive was to build the frequency maps via multidimensional sounds to support the journey of a gradual ascension process. From the 3D level of reality, moving through the 4D realms of imagination, dreams, out-of-body experiences, and then on to a more tangible 5D realm eventually. Gary's work was to create these pathways so that they would have substance and provide the most expansive frequency spectrum for conscious seekers to follow. It gives a wide range of spectrum so that wherever your beliefs may originate or may be held firmly or strongly, your perspectives, your beliefs, that you would find a place within these expansive frequencies to anchor in and then navigate your way to the next level of your particular chosen work. So my job was to support that mission. I did that through trainings, mostly one-on-one for a long time, teachings, webinars, and I created the DNA Avatar program, which is really in its early stages of development. There are a few courses available, and that will be a primary focus for me at some point as I continue pulling all of our body of work together and putting it out on the different platforms. These teachings that I bring forth will help people understand how this type of higher knowledge is absorbed, assimilated, and integrated into one's life in a tangible and practical, and yet the otherworldly way as well. We're moving into a realm where really language, words, books, concepts will become sort of the lesser method of transmitting energy, and visuals, sound, sonic patterns, modulations, frequency spectrums, these will become the method that people will tap into and download, so to speak, information from those connections. And that's where our work comes in at this point. So consider the awakening journey is navigated by lines of communication that are interfaced and operated by the DNA software within you. So consider that deeply, as it is the core teaching within our body of work. All of our soundscapes in our catalog support the DNA activation journey through first awakening to light, through the journey of evolving your consciousness, and then ultimately on to accessing your ascension codes to transcend the current perceived limitations of being a human being. As we stepped up into our primary purpose together, our higher mission work started to emerge. Many of the earlier teachings we each received prior to connecting with each other prepared us for our work together. After an intense, transformative shamanic journey deep into the Amazon rainforest in 1990, where we received major downloads of nonlinear information, we were fully committed and in step with our mission. And these downloads continue to this day to help us remain focused on where we are and where we're going at this time. By the time we had met in 1987, we had both received the preparatory training and life lessons to be ready to commit to a spiritual path above all else. Many of you probably realize how challenging this can be in today's world. But when twin flames come together to accomplish a mission, there's no one or anything that comes between that energy and that focus. To begin the work, and every step of the way, we always had to upgrade technology to bring through the best that we could at the time. We knew that we needed to create a high-end sound environment for testing the music for ourselves as well as with clients. So we designed our Odyssey sound and light room initially. These were the early days of sound tables, but we were fortunate enough to live close to Byron Eakin, who was the original inventor of the Somatron sound tables. We custom designed our system together to include high-end Bose speakers, an external sound system, and Gary could connect his system directly into the sound table so that we could create music for clients in real time and record the output transmissions. Gary initially composed an album called The Odyssey, specifically for introducing people to our sound table. It had lots of deep bass and movement that enabled people to quickly tune into the sounds they were laying on. This primarily worked on chakra system as well to balance and normalize and equalize the chakra system on all the dimensional levels. And we did this work for almost 10 years, and we considered it our research years. We weren't selling music at that time. We were basically selling sessions and healing work at that particular time, and live concerts that Gary was doing around town. So we could have gone in the directions of validating and proving with double-blind studies that we had come to learn what we had come to learn about the transformative power of music, but I'm sure you can understand why that would not have worked in that timeline. Even in today's world of sound-based scientists and explorers, they're still just laying the foundation for the higher potentials of this work. All is valid and in divine timing for the knowledge to be shared more and more with the masses. Our mission and our output was always meant for those who really seek to hang out on the fringe and push the envelope to see what one can do as their consciousness awakens to its higher potentials. So the history of the Level 1 series has many layers to it. In the first series of downloads that Gary and I received about our work here and why we had to come together at that particular time really started to accelerate after we went to the Amazon, which I spoke about in the Myth, Magic, and Mystery Composer Cut, so I won't repeat that here. But it was a life-altering event, and we received a lot of intense downloads of information during that journey that once we returned back to civilization, we started to really awaken to our higher mission parameters. And we realized more about who we are, why we had come together, and what we were here to do on the planet. With regards to our spiritual mission work, there's so many intricate layers to our relationship that took time to unfold. And each unfolded in, of course, the right sequence of time. Like when we were ready, when we had lived a life experience, then the information would be there to take us to the next step. So for quite a long period of time, we were actually in very high productive creative mode, creating projects, moving along quickly, taking the information we were receiving from all the dimensional realms, and both of us converting that into the projects we were working on. This period lasted from 1990 to about 2016. Gary, of course, was always focused on the music. He contributed heavily to the writing in the early years, but then over time, with his training for me, basically I took over most of the writing, and he would just come in and tweak things here and there. Initially, the writing was one of our most challenging parts because we both had to come together and kind of bring our ideas together, and his languaging and my languaging wasn't quite the same initially. Over time, it gelled and became like one, but it took some work. The other parts were easy because the music was his, and obviously I had nothing to do with that. And the graphics, the design, and the web, and all of those marketing and that sort of thing was my thing, and he knew nothing about that. So we were a great team. We had very complementary skills that helped us do what we were here to do. So my part was primarily everything around that, building the business structure, working with clients, doing the marketing, doing the bookkeeping, all of that groundwork that needs to be done in the 3D world to take a creative body of work and turn it into something. The DNA activation work was the core essence of all the music that we did, and all the work that we do, period. Whether it's predominant in the project or not, it's still in all of the projects we work on. So going back to when Gary and I were in our early stages of sharing our life with each other and what our life had been up to that point, we were in our early 30s. So we had each been through a significant amount of experiences, life experiences by that time. We knew what we wanted and what we didn't want with regards to many things, specifically relationships. This is when the twin flame energy comes in, when twin flames realize, first of all, that they love each other deeply beyond any other imaginable relationship, and that they're in sync so harmoniously with what they're here to do, and accomplishing it together is a primary significant tell in a twin flame relationship. So we were fully committed to walk the path of bringing this work forward. For me, at that time, I was deep into my bodywork practice. I was doing Rolfing sessions. So I had a private practice, and I was working with clients doing this 10-session series work, if you're familiar with that work. I was doing a lot of additional therapy beyond that to help people awaken, which was my primary mission work at the time. And I also taught yoga and meditation classes as well to help. This would assist them in their unfolding process and how to integrate the work as their body was shifting and changing and awakening. Rolfing is a deep tissue form of body work that awakens deep psychological and traumatic imprints. It also releases past life traumas. So in addition, as these imprints are released, emotional release and spiritual awakening can occur. So as I was working with clients and going deeper into their bioenergetic form, using Gary's music, because we had the sound table and we were working with that simultaneously, I was going into their physical as well as their etheric and spiritual bodies. And I was going deep down into the cellular levels, where the DNA levels are, as well as expanding as far out into the energetic realms within their auric field. One of the first things that happened for me while working with Gary's music, and something I had been working on myself in trainings, was that I opened up my clairvoyant abilities, my psychic abilities, my ability to hear and connect to realms beyond normal 3D conversation. So I was accessing information from my clients that was difficult to find otherwise. I was able just to hear and see and listen to this information as I worked on them. So I was accessing information beyond the surface levels of awareness through my own deep work with Gary's music as well. With my knowledge of anatomy and physiology, as well as my spiritual studies, to that point I knew there was aspects of the human form that could be reawakened and or programmed intentionally and consciously to live the life one dreamt they could access. As I started sharing that work with Gary, he shared with me that his work with the music, that he, of course, not only worked with himself in his own personal healing, but he was highly attuned to working with humanity. My work was focused on individuals and small groups, whereas Gary's focus was always the larger collective. So in his early years, if you listen back to our intro here on YouTube, I spoke about Gary exploring things down into the microscopic level, as well as expanding out into deep space. But one of the key things that kept coming to him in his works was that the DNA could be affected by certain sound patterns, frequency, modulation, rhythms, etc. And he spoke quite a lot about this in the beginning. Intention was the key to this process, meaning that if a person had no inkling or thought about it, listening to the music, something might occur, but when they start applying intention to it, that's when the music really opens up. He felt that humanity had aspects of their DNA that were more than what they had been told us, especially in science class and academics. So he had that as his mission in many ways, that he knew he was here to awaken the higher aspects of the DNA within the human species, and that it was time for us to evolve as a collective, at least a large portion of us. And through harmonic resonance, the rest would naturally understand, like the 100th monkey theory. Everybody would gradually just know this as a matter of fact. And his mission was to create this music that would build the frequency maps successively to the higher dimensional realms. And as we both realized that, it became clear to us that we were both highly attuned and trained previously to that type of information. And it wasn't long after that we had built the sound room for our research. This was one of the first clear instructions that we had gotten on our mission work. We started using the room ourselves, and I started working with clients and following their progress. I started to bring my clients in, those that I knew were on the awakening journey and were receptive to this type of work. I would do energy healing sessions on them, which was something that just started to come to me in those days from the work we had already done. My sixth sense awakened and psychic abilities started to come forth very quickly, and I started doing the work. I became clairvoyant and was able to observe energy flows, chakra patterns, and dive deep into the person's energy field to uncover Akashic information to assist them in their healing path. While this was happening, Gary was bringing through the music in real time during the session, and we developed a telepathy that enabled him to follow along with what was taking place within the client. The music was recorded, and clients could take the music home and work with it from there. And that was the birth of the DNA Activation music, the LevelOne series. And we actually did that work for close to a decade, really. It was a process of refinement, perfecting the skills we both needed to bring them through. More technology, always more technology. We considered that our research years, and we would obviously observe ourselves too, but we would observe the clients that we gave the music to, and we learned from them, and they learned from us, and we learned many things that the music was doing for them. Those that were on the spiritual path, it definitely was accelerating them, and they were feeling more and more deeply connected with their own personal path and purpose. At that time, we weren't quite sure if we were going to go in the direction of scientific research with it. Eventually, we decided not to, because we realized that we were not in alignment with that, and it was better for us to go as far out on the fringe of metaphysical consciousness as we wanted to see how far we could go, really without anybody putting limitations on us or making us, do it in a certain boxed set of rules. We were more interested in expanding our consciousness than we were in proving that we could do something. because we realized how difficult that would have become to convince a scientific community that we knew what we were talking about. It didn't make any sense for us to put ourselves into that kind of scrutiny, and it would have really held back the work. It would have halted what we were able to do without having any restrictions on ourselves. We were the ones who would be responsible for the forward momentum of the work. And so we were, of course, the most important test subjects, so to speak, because we could observe and report and listen to the effects that we were both experiencing and the knowledge that was coming forth. So we accelerated rather quickly with our spiritual knowledge and assimilation of that knowledge. Most of the knowledge that was gathered came through like a direct transmission through working with the music. Something else to keep in mind, Gary was the one creating music, so his experience of that is very different than someone who's listening to the music like me. So I'm the one listening to the music and working with it. He's the one bringing it through and receiving the transmissions. Now, when an album was done or finished and he could just lay down and listen to it, then he could experience it in a whole different way. But because he created it, he was always, analyzing parts of it where he knew what he did when he created that particular sound or that particular pattern. So I'm really the primary one who has spent the most time with each of the transmissions. So during that time period from 1990, say, to 2000, we recorded a lot of music. A lot of clients came and received music. And at some point, there were other people on the planet who were also picking up on the hidden potentials in the DNA. And gradually the work came to be called DNA Activation. And specifically 12-strand DNA activation was a popular catchphrase, which also evolved over time to 22 strands, all the way up to 144,000 strands, depending on the teacher who was bringing through the information and from where they were bringing it through. Now, around 1995, the commercial internet was starting to form, and with my background in computers and graphics, I easily moved into becoming a web developer. In addition to freelancing my skills, we started our own internet presence, gradually building up a global audience, which we still maintain today. While there may have been fewer people in our immediate area, there were large numbers all across the globe awakening and tuned into this type of information. So with that, we were able to make a living because there was enough people globally who were interested in this type of work and were supporting it. Many teachers started to rise up and started out teaching 12-strand activation and then went on to 22 and so forth. Each new teacher would bring through different aspects of the concepts. This is still happening today. I still see new ways or new ideas of transmitting the information coming through. Our contribution to those beginnings were the 4 soundscapes that we ultimately decided from all the recordings that we did would become the Level 1 series. So we kept thinking that there was a place for us in this awakening body of knowledge. We were trying to, of course, survive financially while doing the work that was not yet understood, much less highly profitable. And because I had a lot of entrepreneurial background, I turned it into a business environment where we started selling the music and we were able to produce our own CDs. With my background in graphics, printing, and publishing, we created our own in-house production department where we produced our CDs, DVDs, and books on demand. So on our website, we initially released a catalog of healing, myth, magic, and mystery, the Odyssey, and the DNA LevelOne series. Choosing the 4 soundscapes from our collection of recordings was a time of deep exploration and feeling deeply into each soundscape that was created. Bringing them through in the series was a divinely guided process. Continuing to bring them through in the series, which we've done with the Level 2 series and the Level 3, everything was divinely guided throughout the whole process. And as time went on, we would learn more and more about why we were doing what we were doing. We didn't always know why we were in the middle of creation, but as time went on, we would learn and receive guidance. So throughout our journey of working on projects, we never really knew what the final outcome was to be, and we learned to live in the mystery and always loved it when the pieces fell together magically. And this continues to happen to this day, really. I'll emphasize here again that the importance to work with each soundscape individually for a while before moving on to the next one, spending several weeks to many months with one before moving on to the next one. What you're doing is anchoring in multidimensional level frequency patterns that will awaken and unfold patterns deeply held within your bioenergetic form. Each one builds on the preceding, and then they continue to work together gradually, building a solid foundation in preparation for the deeper levels of number 2 and number 3 series. The ultimate goal here that we're doing is helping you build up a body of light that connects you deeply to your soul essence. Once you establish that relationship through connection with your higher self, your guides, master teachers, then you can start expanding your consciousness to connect with source vibration, ultimately. The level 2 series builds the structures. It's kind of akin to adding walls and windows and doors to a house. The level 1 builds the foundation. The level 2 starts to take and build the form. The level 3 now accesses the stable form that's built from level 1 and 2, establishes resonance again with the DNA Ascension codes now, and then begins the process of Ascension. And there's many ways we can talk about what Ascension is, which I'm not going to go into here, but probably in one of my Sunday chill meditations or something like that, as well as a DNA avatar course eventually. So I'll share more about that in some of the composer cuts, as well as the other methods of information that we have out there. There's more expanded info about how to use these soundscapes in various places, like you can read the CD cassette inserts if you purchase the full fidelity downloads. The DNA Activation book has a lot of info in it, and the DNA Avatar program, which I'm building up, currently has 4 courses available, so you can get started with that, and I will be expanding that in the next couple years. And you can always check in with me if you need any specific direction, want to share your experiences or talk about them or have questions. So as I said, it's important when you start with our DNA series that you do start with the level 1 series and the number 1 CD in that series. This is regardless of how much spiritual work you've already done and how advanced along the journey you may consider yourself to be. We tell people at least 7 times in a deep meditative state. And this doesn't mean that you put it on and you go about your life in the background 7 times, and that counts as 1. That's not how it works. It has to be in a fully deep meditative state where you're not sleeping, you're not drifting off, you're paying an intense amount of attention to what's going on in the soundscape within you and around you, while letting go into the formless state of pure vibration. And this is where the DNA Avatar program, Becoming Sound, dissolving into a formless state, would be helpful. And that can take some people a very long time. In the beginning years, since most people were beginners, it did take them sometimes a year. They would work with one and then come back in a year and say, oh, okay, I'm ready now. Now it's accelerated now, and the people are further along. The energy's more grounded on the planet, so it won't take as long. But again, you should honor the space and not rush yourself, not push it. There's lots of other things you can do, that you can take courses and other types of things and learn and read and study, do other things. But in this particular case, this is sonic information which goes deep into the cellular level, helping you to unpack many things that you packed up long ago. So we call these little packets of things MFPs, which are multidimensional holographic frequency packets. And they're combinations of various things, from traumatic events. Some are easy, some are really difficult. A lot of our death processes that we've gone through, a lot of the horrific deaths that we may have experienced, the wars, the torture, those kinds of things are very deep within the consciousness field. And so the music will gradually unravel that and unfold that in a way in which you can process it without destroying the current life you have around you, because you need to maintain stability in the 3D life around you. Otherwise, you really can't do the work. You end up having to divert attention into what needs to be handled in that 3D environment. So once you make a sincere, heartfelt commitment to walk your spiritual path, some of the initial steps are that you have to take a look at the life you're currently living and make some necessary changes in order for you to be able to do that. And only you can decide what those changes might be, but they could be drastic as well as difficult for the people around you. So it takes a while to kind of look at that and understand your karma, potentially, what you might have incurred and what you could incur if you do things in, let's say, an abrupt, aggressive way. So it just takes some time to examine the life you've led up to the point that you decide you're now going to be fully committed to a spiritual path. And you don't have to do that. Ideally, you just take it slow. You don't jump in with both barrels, so to speak. It's not easy to walk a dedicated spiritual path 100% if you already have established a life that is full of connections with people, places, and things. This is how it should be. This is a slow, steady, gradual form of the work with bursts of accelerated energy. So it would take people time, and they would stop and start and stop and start, and that's okay. Many people would come back after a year or two and say, okay, I'm ready. My life is in a better place right now. I feel like I can explore this with more commitment. So everybody's in a different place nowadays. Many people are being born already that have a lot of these codes within them already opened, established, and activated. So it's going to be easier for them to tune into the frequency bands that these soundscapes align you with. Children actually have greater access to this information these days and easily understand the music from a higher perspective. So if you think you have a young indigo light worker healer in your family, play the music for them and ask them what they think. What is this music about? And just listen to what they might have to say. So ideally, even if you have done the work and you feel like you are pretty well along your journey, it's still a good idea to be with one for a little while. Maybe it would only take you a week or two, and you'll feel like, okay, I've assimilated everything in that for now, and I feel comfortable and my life is stable around me, and then you can move on to the next one. If you realize that these are transmissions, they're not just music. It's not just music that you put on Spotify and listen to in the background. These are transmissions, and they're meant to be ingested energetically into your entire bioenergetic form. So all the way down to your cellular level, DNA level, quantum level, and then expanding all the way out to the etheric boundaries of your auric field, and then kind of maintaining that energy field in a stable manner. These soundscapes are very deep, intentional frequency patterns that will help you unfold into a state of higher flow, ongoing. So progressively you will get to higher and higher states of flow where you can stabilize. And you can think about it like this: if you go to a weekend event or you take some psychedelics or something like that, and you reach a real high state, and you may think you've touched God, and wisdom came down from the masters, and everything, but then you come back to your life, and there's your life, and everything seems to go to hell all of a sudden. The music will continuously help you to realign. It'll take in account all of that higher frequency, but it'll align it with the darker stuff that's still trying to come up and be cleared. It'll help you to connect to dimensional levels of your full self. Your soul essence is what we call that. Your energy that is you at the core of who you are. And sometimes that energy is dormant for a long time, even an entire lifetime for many people. And your intention added to the process is what's really key here. You create a more cohesive, resonant core that extends out to the farthest reaches of your auric field. And in that resonance field, then you establish resonance with source vibration, the God force that's all around and in and out of everything. And you connect to that energy then you have a nice flow of information flowing in and out and in and out. And this kind of knowledge is experiential, and it requires a lot of dedicated spiritual work at times. So the first 4 soundscapes in the level 1 can be quite intense for people. And 1 and 2 are a little bit easier, but then 3 and 4 can get even more intense because it deals more with the hidden darkness, traumas, a lot of past life death scenarios and imprints that we've all been through. So tortures and wars and all that kind of stuff, rapes for women, abuse, things like that will be buried in your field. So this kind of knowledge requires a lot of dedicated spiritual work at times. Some of these imprints go much deeper into your dormant past life imprints that you currently operate from. The reasons that you have repeated patterns, maybe addictions, money issue, relationship issues, purpose, career issues, situations that you seem to just repeat over and over again. These patterns and behaviors will be looked at. They will be awakened. The music will seep into those patterns, the MFPs, the multidimensional frequency patterns, and go in there and bring in light, bring in love, bring in peace into a place of darkness. But when that darkness bursts, there's some issues to deal with. There's some energy to deal with. And that's the work that gets kind of an ongoing thing. So you go in, you bring in light into the darkness, you come back out, you extend far out into the light energy, and then you go back in. It's like a pendulum, constantly swinging back and forth, but it also goes up at the same time. So it's not just back and forth over the same thing. You'll end up spiraling up. The sounds release codes within those patterns that help you to unfold the information that then puts you into the transformational process that allows you to make the changes you need to make more easily. It's an unfolding journey that's ongoing, and when you use this music as a tool to help you with your transformational journey, you can slowly accelerate. I know that's kind of an oxymoron, but the process of spiritual awakening is a slow, gradual process. But if you do it daily, regularly, then it can be an accelerated process at the same time, as opposed to maybe going to one spiritual retreat a year and having big openings and then going back to your life trying to figure it all out for the following year. So this is kind of a daily commitment to yourself that you're here to unfold spiritually. The music acts as a guide, as a teacher, as a tool, as a reminder, so listening to it daily, even if you're not paying attention to it, is a good idea. Put it on in the background when you're driving or when you go to sleep or sometime during the day, just put it on and let it play in your environment. You don't always have to be focused at it. You don't always have to be in deep meditation with it. It's good to let it fill your environment, to fill your space with these frequencies so that as you move around, you're always ingesting the frequencies that are in your space. And then at night, if you want, when you go to bed, it's always a great time to do it more focused. You can take some time to see what you did in that day. Did you clear anything? Did you have any aha moments? Did you have any dreams the night before that were particularly important to what's going on with you? And then if you wake up in the morning and you're doing, what are you working on that day? What do you want to hold focus on? What do you want to be aware of during that day? You have to start bringing your consciousness in all the time because your consciousness is directing the flow of your day and how you think about it and how you feel about it and how you act to other people in your environment is all part of you becoming fully conscious and fully aware. You may find places in the music that you're going along with and everything seems to be in harmony with what's happening. And then all of a sudden there's some sort of pattern that you hear or you sense or feel within the music that triggers an event or an imprint that is either something you're aware of or not aware of, or some fear or concern that you've held back for your entire life. It can be repressed emotions from this life as well. So it can be all kinds of situations that haven't been fully cleared or reintegrated back into your entire bioenergetic form. all your MFPs will gradually be absorbed back into a state of wholeness and balance. So the Level 1 series, this is where you start. This is where you begin your journey. And as I say, you start with the first one, get to a point where you know you've listened to it at least 7 times in a good deep meditation state, where you felt that you were fully conscious throughout the entire soundscape. A lot of people think and have said to us, well, I'm really advanced, I've been doing a lot of work, and I get that and I understand, of course. The ego wants to always be further along than it is. And that may or may not be the case, but if it's true, then you'll go through the first one more quickly. Maybe you only need 2 weeks, maybe you only need a month, and that's fine. And if that's true, then you go on to the next one and do the same thing, and then go through all 4. Now, once you've moved to the next one, you should still continue to listen to the previous one, because that will also continue the process. As you listen further along, the other ones behind it will still have energetic imprints that it can now move into and release that it couldn't before, because there was just some other kind of stuck energy around it, especially when you get to 3 and 4, because 3 and 4 are more challenging. You might want to go back to 1 where you're more comfortable for a little while and get reestablished or rebalanced, and then go back to 3. So you'll kind of learn how to play with them back and forth like that. So once you step into the work and do it this way, you'll understand how to continue with the rest of the soundscapes. So at this time, this is, we're just about hitting January 2025. We were already on to level 3. And before Gary left the planet, he left a couple of soundscapes that only I'm working with at this time. And they'll eventually be released once I get the energetic go-ahead to do so. But I've been working with these for, 36 years. And they continue to surprise me. In fact, I put level 1, number 1 on the other night. I can't say that I listen to the level 1s very much, but I decided to do that. And, again, I was just amazed at the depth and the levels of awareness that still rise up even in the older soundscapes for me. So the advice and counsel I give you comes from over 3 decades of my personal experience, both in the Odyssey sound room and with high-end headphones. I do listen a lot more now with high-end headphones. In the early days, there weren't these high-end headphones, or they were very expensive and people couldn't afford them. And so now I do tend to work more with headphones, but I do go into the Odyssey fairly regularly as well. And I've worked privately with thousands of clients all over the world, guiding them through how to learn from their experiences and offering guidance and seeing consistent results from following these guidelines. My work with this started out to help people awaken. Then I was guided to help people evolve. And now my journey, as I'm on a new leg of my journey since Gary left the planet, my journey now is to help others move along the ascension process from 3D to 5D reality constructs. And with Gary on the other side, supporting me, helping me continue to build the bridges, extending the bridges really, because now that he's there, I can reach out even further with our connection and bring back the information that needs to be offered as we're all continuing to move along this ascension journey. So I want to share just a little bit here in closing regarding the use of psychedelics in this work. I'll definitely elaborate more on this in the future podcast as well, and I have some Sunday chill meditations where I speak about it as well. So many seekers explore psychedelics at some point, sometimes initially just as a party tool and to enhance your level of engagement with the group energy that you might be hanging out with at the time. But if you're ready and you want to do it for specifically spiritual exploration and you're not doing it haphazardly or with what they may say folly, then I recommend that you give that a try if that's something you're interested in. Psychedelics, Gary started doing psychedelics as a teen, as did I, growing up in the 60s. And we learned how to connect with music through that sort of tool. Of course, cannabis was always the primary tool. And when Gary did them, he did them specifically for spiritual exploration and not in a party atmosphere. He knew there was a deep, intense connection between the psychedelic realms, the music, and the ascension process and the evolutionary process. So my suggestion is to have great respect for that. And if you're new to psychedelics, I definitely recommend you don't start listening to the music with psychedelics until you feel that you're more prepared for that, because it's very intense when you do the music with psychedelics. Now, for those who are travelers, I would say when you do the music with the psychedelics, you will get what I'm saying on so many different levels. The music will speak to you much more clearly, much more directly. The transmission will be much more powerful and potent if you are on the psychedelics. And then once you've had that experience, you'll then be able to, through harmonic resonance established, be able to begin the recreation of that process organically, which is really what we suggest ultimately, is to develop your spiritual self more organically with less reliance on substances. Substances can be a tool to be used sparingly, periodically, to enhance or help push you through perhaps a stuck spot that you're not quite getting, that you can't quite find your way into and through. So in Gary's situation, he preferred mushrooms over any of the other options, as he felt the organic nature and their deep integration into the planet's diverse ecosystem was really important. The mycelium runs through our entire planet, if you've ever studied about the fungi. So you'll feel this in the music and places. If you've explored psychedelics as well, even if you're not on anything and you're listening to the music, at times you're going to feel like you're on a psychedelic, as that's what the music is supposed to do. One of the things that mostly Gary received when we went to the Amazon jungle was that in time, the music would replace the need for psychedelics, that people would be able to create and recreate the same effects without having to have the substances. So what we learned was that we could eventually use the music to access these states without the need for substances. And that's where I am at this point. I don't really care for substances at this point. I find that it actually throws me off, that for me, the deeper meditation work, which I can do for hours at a time, takes me further with more awareness and consciousness about what's happening. With psychedelics or other substances, even cannabis, it can have an overlay or an imprint of information that is hard to capture. It's hard to focus on. The mind starts to go scatter wonky with that sort of thing. Psychedelics can take you on its own journey. And so my suggestion is to, work with it, again, sparingly. And of course, it's up to you. Maybe that's, your pathway for now. And that's okay too, because it was ours as well for a period of time. So, just decide what you're heading for and what you're using it for. For me, I have had a lot of past life trauma that was really difficult. And one of my very traumatic death scenarios involved being murdered while I was on psychedelics. So my death got messed up because as I'm dying, I'm on psychedelics. And so I have had to really work that through in my work with the music so that I could do the ascension process, eventually consciously moving through those different phases and stages. So many people have that and don't realize, if the paranoia comes up or tremendous fear comes up, it's possible that something along those lines occurred too, that it just brings up too much of that energy, and the anxiety and the fear overtakes. And it doesn't really feel very good when that happens. So again, as I said, now if you do listen to the music, even a mild form of cannabis is nice. It's more gentle, not having to get, very stoned, but just mildly, and then put the music on. That's a pretty nice way to experience it too, because it'll give you access to the higher teachings and hopefully give you a little bit more control in maintaining the flow of the transmission and the information you're actually trying to receive. So that can be a great catalyst for working with the music without substances, just to see what it will take for you to do it on your own. And that can be a goal too, like telling your guidance, okay, I'm going to take a little bit of this, but I'm doing it because I want to learn how to do it without it. So show me, teach me what it is I need to learn in order to do this on my own. This is how you establish harmonic resonance with the teachings, so that you can gradually step down into a more direct knowingness within. And only you can decide where you are in that belief, and I'm here if you want to explore this further at any time. So with all of that, one of the things that I'm working on now, so that you'll understand the purpose behind it, is the psychedelic imagery. And what I've discovered and what I've been shown is that, first of all, of course, the music is something that can be done with your eyes closed, but then you still have the mind that goes on and chatters about things. So what I'm doing is I'm presenting the visuals in a flowing way in alignment with the music, so that you start off with basically opening the third eye to these psychedelic-looking visuals, and that feeds the third eye to start slowing down, to start releasing the serotonin and all the other hormones, the DMT, and releasing all of that so that you have a natural high experience. And then as you close your eyes and just listen to the music, you've already established this sort of psychedelic connection. And what I call this is traveling in the psychedelic realms. So not psychedelics, but the psychedelic realms are important. And if you think about this, if you think about the usage of psychedelics and plant teachers throughout all of our tribal times and ancient times, they've used that as a way to commune and communicate with the other realms. And again, I'm suggesting that through this more organic technique, you have much more control to maintain awareness as you're learning how to travel from here to there. So here to there can be third dimension to fifth dimension, the other side, however you want to term it. Basically, as we evolve and we move into our, what they call now, death. I don't believe there is a death. I believe that you can transcend that by learning how to ascend. And that means that you can consciously choose to start going to the other side without having to die. And that takes a lot of work. And this series of soundscapes will help you with that. It will help you get to that place where you can start having communications with the other side and start moving information back and forth, receiving and sending information. And this explains why Gary's doing what he's doing now and why I'm here doing what I'm doing here now. And so as we continue to build the strength of that bridge between here and there, that information will come through in the music. As the music, even though some of the music was done decades ago, it still evolves, because the more energy that's put into it, the more that it starts to release, and more people are able to connect to those frequency bands. So the psychedelic videos that you see on the YouTube channel are really important to just preferably sit home in your living room with a big screen. It's nice to see it on a big screen and a good sound system, if that's possible. If all you have is a phone, that's fine. Put some nice headphones on, good sound quality, and put the video on and just stare at it until you feel ready to close your eyes, and then just listen to the music from there. You can kind of also open and close your eyes, feeding the third eye, opening that energy pocket up, and then closing them back down again. Now, if you want to take it to the next level, what I would suggest is that you get a VR headset and start working in virtual reality. I've been there for several years now, both creating content and hosting events. I host a weekly sound healing event where we watch a video of the psychedelic imagery, and then we shift into just the music, close our eyes, and it's a really nice space to explore it and enhance the connections to the psychedelic realms. When you're fully immersed in the VR headset, you move into a completely different world. It's actually a much closer world to fifth world templates than you can attain in the physical world because of all the distractions we have here in this realm. So that is a suggestion I have, is that you start doing that. There's a lot of very nice apps being made by a lot of creatives and spiritual people that will help you with your meditations and shamanic journey practices. As of now, this is January 2025. This year, I'm going to be working on putting together an app that will be available in Meta, which is virtual reality world building. And I will have the Temple of the Divine Muse will be the hub of the work, and all of the work that I've put out here and YouTube and other places will start getting incorporated into the virtual space. So we have lots of plans to work on interactive experiences, learning experiences, group events, concerts. And we did all of this for several years in what was called Alt Space, which is no longer here. But we built over 25 worlds in that space, and we were doing that. And then they shut down. So we've been kind of watching and waiting for the next most ideal move. And so now we're going to create our own app, and that will be hopefully available towards the end of this year. As we get going, we'll be, of course, releasing it in steps and stages. I don't have the full answer to this yet. This is something I'm learning, because this is where I'm at in my learning, is how to work with the psychedelic realms to convert that into another dimensional space. And that's what I'm working with. So as I continue that, of course, I will share that on this channel, and depending on, when you've come to this information, it may already be here at this point. I may be on the other side at this point when you're listening too, so who knows. But anyway, I think I've given you enough good information to start your journey with the level ones. And as I say, the DNA Avatar program is also a really good place to start. There's a lot of information there that'll help you understand even further. There's some questionnaires and things that'll get you thinking about where you are on your journey and what you might need to do to continue and expand your own work. So anyway, I'll leave you with that, and feel free to add comments, feel free to email me or communicate with me if you feel like that would be helpful to you on your journey. Namaste.
Thank you for your interest in our DNA Activation LevelOne series of soundscapes. We hope you gained valuable insights and enjoyed the information presented. If you have any questions or would like further clarification on any of the content, please feel free to comment below. Our intention is to provide additional information and to foster a deeper understanding of the creation process of our soundscapes. Your comments will help us share additional information in future podcasts, as well as posting replies here. The DNA Activation series consists of 4 soundscapes, each ranging from about 45 to 55 minutes. We also offer an extended version where you can listen to all 4 soundscapes in a row for over 3.5 hours, for those seeking a more immersive experience and have already worked with each one individually for their first pass. To stay updated on our work and access exclusive content, consider subscribing to our channel and liking this video, and share it with your friends. Join one of our membership tiers for an ad-free, talk-free, and extended versions of our content. Your support allows us to sustain our efforts and provide you with even more great content. We greatly appreciate your support on many levels.